When you think about self-worth, it's not dependent on external factors like achievements, possessions, or even social status. If you have narrowed down your self-worth to external things, right? And sometimes when you look at people who may have more monetary things than you can start to negatively say to yourself, right? And this is why you got to cast down every imagination and every high thing that exalts itself above the knowledge of God, and bring into captivity every thought, right, into the obedience of Christ. So sometimes when you are facing these, when you're going through these thought process and you start to look at yourself as less than or even better than, right? You have to realize and constantly remind yourself that your self-worth is not dependent on external factors or achievements, right? It is rooted in the inherent worth of being who you are, right? Self acceptance involves accepting yourself with all your strengths, your weaknesses, your flaws, and your imperfections, right? It means recognizing that nobody is perfect and embracing oneself as a whole, right? When you start to see that, you know what, like I said before, when you begin to accept, like to me, there was a TikTok video that was going around and it says, I don't know if it was I forgot who the lady was, but she was saying something about I love who I am. I like the way I learn, and I like how I learn from my mistakes or something like that. And I know some people might have looked at that video and probably said, well, that just kind of sounds arrogant. But in all actuality, what she's saying is she has embraced everything that makes up who she is, right? I have embraced everything that makes up who Nadira is, the good, the bad, the ugly. Embracing doesn't mean not changing in areas that you need to change. Embracing just simply means you understand that it's something that you have to work on. We have to learn how to start giving ourselves a break, right? Sometimes we are so gung-ho on trying to be a certain way, trying to meet a goal of being a certain way instead of instead of pacing ourselves, right? Through change. Because I think when you pace yourself through change, it sticks a little bit better, right? Because now you're not doing it for other people. You're not doing it to impress anybody. You're not doing it to show somebody that you're better than or less than. You're doing it because you yourself want to become more aware of who God created you to be so that you can function as an individual in this society, right? So you can function at the level of capacity that God created you to be, right? Healthy, another thing is what I was talking about in the first segment, we was talking about boundaries, right? Well, healthy boundaries, right? Having a sense of self-worth allows, right, individuals to set boundaries in their personal and professional relationships and enables them to prioritize their well-being and assert their needs and wants without feeling guilty or unworthy. How many times have you felt guilty for not setting for you ever look back and said, "Dang, I probably should have did that different. I should have set more boundaries. I should have did this better. I should have did that better." Right? You have to learn the reason why you set boundaries. Boundaries are there to protect you. Boundaries are there to teach people how to interact with you. If they want to interact with you, then you have to interact with me based on this standard that I have set for myself, right? It doesn't mean that you're being cocky or anything like that. It means that you're protecting your emotional and your mental well-being, right? You're protecting yourself from being used and taken advantage of, because people, I have learned, people will use you up and toss you to the side and dispose of you like you ain't nothing, right? And go on to the next person, right? And do the exact same thing. And you can't really get mad at them because people are who they are. You have to take the time and set boundaries for yourself and say, you know what? Yeah, I learned my lesson in that area. I won't be doing that again. And that's how it got to be. You have to set boundaries to protect your well-being. So you're not frustrated when you feel like things are not going the way you wanted to and you're looking like, dang, you ever worked on a job and your boss, when they do like mandatory overtime and you're always the one that's everybody else always say, oh, I got stuff to do. I'm not gonna be able to make it. I ain't gonna be able to. And then you're the one that always gets stuck having to do the mandatory overtime, or you're the one that's always having to stay late, have to come in early, because you have not set boundaries. You have made people, and this is, it's kind of like a sense of false humility, where you make people think that, oh, because I'm available and I'm just this free spirited person, you could just do whatever you want. I'm just being humble. No, it's not being humble when you don't set boundaries. Being humble means that you understand that you are worth it. And you have to have time to take care of yourself, because if you don't, you will not be able to function in whatever it is that God called you to do, because you will allow people to overstep their boundaries, right? And use and abuse you, right? That's how we wind up in narcissistic relationships, right? When you are a person that is sensitive to the needs of other people, it is highly possible and more than likely accurate that you're always going to run into somebody that's a narcissist, right? Because narcissists are attracted to people that see themselves, their value based on what somebody else does. That's why you got to be careful when people come and they're just constantly overwhelming you with what we say in the love bombing, because most of the time people are narcissists wrapped up in love bombing, right? And their whole goal is to get you feeling like, oh, they love me. And the whole goal is they have their intent and their purpose on what they want to do and why they came into your life. And if you don't set boundaries, then what happens is people come in and they get what they need from you, and they just toss you like you're used goods, right? Another thing we can do is we can avoid comparing ourselves, right, to other people, right? We are good. Paul said, don't compare yourself among yourself, right? Why? Right? Because when you're comparing yourself to other people, you don't know what people have gone through to get to where they are. You don't know, right? You don't know what they had to give up. You don't know what it is they had to sacrifice. You don't know what they had to do to get to where they are. But when when you're comparing yourself to another human being, you wind up getting caught up in this thing where you start feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough, and you go through these cycle of thoughts because you're looking at another person, right? You have to compare yourself to the word of God, right? And look at yourself. Look at yourself. How I don't compare myself with anybody but myself. How was I last week? How was I last year? I'm a total different person than I was last year. I'm a total different person than I was last week, right? Not at the core, because the core of who you are is the same. But there are things about who you are that make up your thought process, that make up the thing, your reason for doing what you do, that causes you to change. The more, it's almost like that saying that says, when you know better, you do better, right? Self-care. Self-care is so important, right? Self-care is when you're able to nurture, right, and put into practices of nurturing you, right? Engaging in activities that promote physical, mental, and emotional well-being, reinforcing the belief that you deserve love, care, and attention, right? Say that with me. I deserve love, care, and attention. Let that sink in. I deserve love, care, and attention, right? And when you begin to nurture yourself with that mindset of I deserve love, care, and attention, you will hashtag be good to yourself, right? Because you will teach other people how to treat you when you are good to yourself, right? When you're good to you, you teach other people how to be good to you, right? When you treat yourself a certain way, you teach other people how to treat you a certain way. When you don't tolerate certain things in your life, you teach other people what you will and will not tolerate, right? And last but not least, and then I'm going to close with this. Positive self-talk or affirmations, right? Pay attention to your self-talk and cultivate a positive internal dialogue, right? So that you can challenge these negative thoughts and self-critical beliefs and replace them with affirmations and self-compassion. This is why I did the 31 days of becoming, because it takes 21 days to change a habit. But when you go an extra 31 days, you are reaffirming, right, the things that you have noticed or that you see or want to see in your life. It becomes an internal dialogue. And what happens is you begin to see yourself as what you're saying to yourself. I began to change my thinking and my thought patterns when I started to become aware of my my self-talk. What am I saying to myself? There's a video on TikTok. It's funny, and they were like in the mirror, and they were like, what were they saying? They were saying something about I forgot what it was, but they were in the video and they were like had their hands and everybody was dancing and stuff like that. What you say, it doesn't matter what other people scream in your ears. What you say to yourself privately. What are you saying to yourself when you get up in the morning? What are you saying to yourself throughout the day? What are you saying to yourself before you go to bed? It does matter. It does matter, because the more you work on your internal dialogue, and the way you work on your internal dialogue is by affirmations and the word of God, right? Beginning to proclaim whatever it is that God has already spoken about you, right? He said his thoughts about you are good and not evil. So you don't have to wonder, well, man, does God really, is it in the will of God for me to have? No, his thoughts towards me are good and not evil. So I don't have to walk around feeling like I don't care what circumstances brought me into this world, whether your parents made a mistake or never intended on having you here. The fact of the matter is that you made it here means that God has a purpose for you. So guess what? His thoughts about you, even you, are good and not evil. No matter what circumstances, he's already taken into account all the things that were going to be involved in getting you in this earth. And it still didn't change his mind about the plan that he has for you. So make sure that you are talking positively to yourself and that you are not comparing yourself, right? And that you're building healthy boundaries. Learn how to accept the person that God created you to be, and work on your being aware, becoming aware of your values, and you will start to see your esteem become higher, right? Your esteem that was once low will begin to increase higher, and you will have a higher way of esteeming the person that God has created you to be.